Hello everybody, it's Hope K. Welcome back to my channel. It's been a minute. I took the whole of February off and I had time to think and reflect because some of the comments that I get in my comment section have been troubling me. First of all, I want to say that they are community guidelines. You cannot be horrible and mean to other people. You can share your experiences and discuss things without having to be disrespectful and cruel to one another. So I need you guys to kind of keep that on deck. I need you to do better. The second thing is that I've been getting a lot of "it's not all men" kind of comments, and I feel like this video is necessary because we know it's not all men, but it's enough men that it's a cause for concern and we have to talk about it. Men's behaviors or treatment towards women is questionable most times. The statistics show it, people's personal experiences show it. So I don't really understand why this is a big argument for you guys to come through and say, not all men. It's not all of you. It's so weird that I have to say that, but it's not all of you who say this, and it's not all men. We understand it is some men, maybe it's even most men, but we cannot hide behind a few good men and then not talk about the fact that men are weird and disgusting in some of their behaviors towards women. I felt so powerless and I just didn't know where to go with this channel. But I've decided that it's my channel, it's my platform. I created this space for other women, especially younger women, to learn from some of my mistakes and other mistakes that other women have made, and also for awareness. We share our experiences and we talk about hurtful things, difficult things, so that we can all grow from it, men and women alike. But if I can't change men's opinions, that's okay, that's fine. But I just want a safe space for women to come and talk and share and grow. So if you have a problem with it, you really do not have to subscribe to my channel. You don't have to watch it. You can just see it, hate it, and move on. If you do decide to share a point that is, disagreeing with the general idea of the things that we're talking about on the channel, that's also okay. If you leave a comment, don't make it hateful. It doesn't have to be. You can just sternly say your stance and keep it pushing. So with no further ado, let's talk about the not all men argument. But for the rest of you who understand what I'm trying to do here, thank you so much for supporting me, and thank you for contributing and sharing your stories and getting the comment section popping, because my comment section is actually interesting and I learn a lot from you women. So thank you for being here. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and share this video for some of the younger women to learn from it, and also some of the older women who may not be able to understand or haven't understood some of the things that we discuss here. Thank you so much.
My daughter's not dating till she's at least 30 because men can't be trusted. Yes, men can't be trusted. It's not all men.
I'm sure you've heard not all men, right? But did you know that statistically a woman is safer alone with a trained grizzly bear than she is with a man? I once said this to someone in person, and without thinking, he goes, "Yeah, but the grizzly bear is trained not to hurt anyone." And we are what? Anyway, so yeah, definitely not all men, but more than enough. Way more than enough.
Of course it's not all men, but if I gave you 3 cakes and told you that in one of them I put deadly poison in, you wouldn't eat any cake. It's not all cakes.
Why are some of you big brain men on this app so incapable of understanding such a simple concept? How many times do we have to say, we know it's not all men? The reason we say men instead of some men is because it stops men who consider themselves good guys from tuning out of the conversation because I'm not like those other guys. Also, this dude had the audacity to come in my comment section and tell me that this isn't a gender issue. Violence against women and girls is literally a gender-based issue. Pretending like it's not is never going to actually solve anything because it never gets to the root of the problem, which is misogyny. Instead of crying about it not being all men, why don't you actually engage in the subject matter? Engage with the fact that 1 in 3 women in their lifetime will either be physically or sexually abused by a man. Engage with the fact that more women in the US in the last 2 decades have died at the hands of a husband or boyfriend than anyone who has died in 9/11, Afghanistan, and Iraq. Engage with the fact that this is a gender issue that was perpetuated by a power dynamic that was created by a male-dominated patriarchy.
Isn't it funny how men are always so quick to say, not all men, except for when it comes to their girlfriends or their daughters, and then all of a sudden it's every single man to exist?
When people say stuff like not all men, I like to remind them of this story when I was serving on grand jury. We had just heard testimony from this domestic violence victim, and after she was done telling her story, one of the grand jurors was like, it's not like I don't believe her, but her story just didn't seem super sad. She didn't seem super sad about it or rattled. She seemed like she was just telling a story. I had to remind him that there's no such thing as a perfect victim. And typically when they recite the story or retell the story, they've already told it a million times to law enforcement, family members, or whatever. Or they're diminishing what actually happened because they're so used to being abused. Like, he literally said that he wished he saw more emotion from the victim so it was more believable. So it's not all men, but it's enough to where we fucking can't trust any one of you.
Not all men, but all women are bad drivers, and all women are moody, and all women are emotional, and all women get to be painted with the same brush. But don't you dare generalize men. That's unfair.
That's why I don't feel bad for men when we say things like all of these men are dangerous. I don't feel bad because y'all are helping the actual predators get away with it. If you want to be a good man, if you want to be considered an upstanding man, a man of honor, and you don't want to be lumped in with all men are dangerous, you don't want to be lumped in there, it's not enough to just not harm women. That's not enough. It requires you to say something when you see something. It requires you to actually hold your homeboys accountable, to listen to the women around you when they say, your homeboy is kind of weird. He's kind of creepy. I don't know if I like his vibe. Instead of brushing it off and saying, oh, he's just like that. Maybe you should listen. Maybe you should dig a little deeper. Maybe you should ask some questions. Because for every man out there that is actively harming women, for the actual predators out there, it is extremely unlikely that they're doing this and getting away with it completely on their own, with nobody knowing, with nobody noticing, without them showing anybody. And I don't believe that any of them are like that. Somebody knows, somebody saw something, somebody heard something. There's been a rumor, there's been an allegation. None of these crimes are just going without anybody having a clue, especially for a man like Trey Songz, who is in a place of power and has had these allegations against him for years. Over and over and over. Multiple women have said this. So clearly this is like his MO. This is like what he does. So there's not one piece of me that believes he's been getting away with this and it's just been flying under everybody's radar. And none of the men around him knew anything. No, they knew something and they just didn't care. It doesn't bother them. Which is why we say all of these men are a liability. As in, you hang around the wrong one and you are liable to have your life changed forever in the worst ways.
So recently I've seen a lot of guys saying not all men. And as a guy, I fully understand that you want to say not all men because you yourself feel like, well, I'm not like that and all of my friends are not like that. I had to think a lot about it until I understood what it meant. But there were a few simple things that really helped me understand. When the story of Sarah Everard came out, my girlfriend was instantly invested. She was like traumatized, so upset, followed the news from the very first moment, like before anyone was talking about it. I thought it was tragic, sad, like broke my heart, but I wasn't as invested as she was. It took me a moment to realize why. Because Sarah could have been any girl, could have been my girlfriend, but it'll never be me. It'll never be me. It never could have been me. That's what women feel in their bones right now. Not a strong guy. My girlfriend works out 2 to 3 times a day and I can hold her back with one arm effortlessly. Of course women are right to be afraid of all men when we're on average 90% stronger than them.
I think we should be able to say not all men without feminists getting their little panties in a twist. I mean, men are stronger than women for starters. Not all men. And we men, we protect and we support our women. Not all men. Do you even like men? Not all men.
It's not all men, but boys will be boys. It's not all men, but it's our responsibility to dress in a way that doesn't tempt any of them, because otherwise we would be asking for it. It's not all men, but our fathers teach us that none of them can be trusted because they want one thing and one thing only. It's not all men, only when a woman talks about her experience with men. It's not all men, but the men that do hurt us simply just can't stop themselves. They have urges. It's not all men, but all women can't drive, are too emotional and irrational. It's not all men, but women only want your money and to use you and nothing else. All of them. It's not all men, but doing anything like a girl is an insult. It's not all men, especially since the people that do horrible things aren't real men. They're little boys, and it makes so much sense, because a little child is more likely to be a bad person than a fully grown adult. That's also why whenever I see a woman do something bad, I say, that's not a real woman, that's a little girl. It's not all men, but if something happens to me while I drink, it's my fault because I shouldn't have put myself in that position. It's not all men, but the DV rates skyrocket whenever a sports team loses after a big game, and I only ever see women talk about it. It's not all men, and men are also not the issue, but it is a little girl's responsibility in school to make sure that her shoulders and her knees aren't tempting the male students or the male staff. It's not all men, but somehow always mostly men that shame other men when they come forward with something that happened to them. It's not all men, but every female victim that's coming forward is just spreading false accusations and trying to ruin an innocent man's life. It's not all men, but still men that are making most of the laws that are legislating a woman's body. It's not all men, but in most Western countries, marital rape was only illegalized in the 90s. In the country I live in, it was legalized in 1997. It's not all men, but the people that fought so long against that law were men. It's not all men, but I was 5 when the first one targeted me, and 8 when the first one truly scared me. It's not all men, but whenever I was targeted by one in public, only women helped me. The men either just stared, or most of them laughed. It's not all men, but a lot of them just sit and listen and participate when their friends are saying the most vile things about women. It's not all men, but one of the first things I learned in law school was to prepare myself on being taken less seriously than the men in my future occupation. It's not all men, but too many are focused on saying this instead of being part of the change that makes it possible for women to not be cautious of all men. It isn't all men, and it will never be all men, but every woman I know has a story involving a man. My first one was when I was 5. My latest one was yesterday.
Okay, I've been thinking about making this video for a few days now, and I'm going to do it. And I'm only here to educate. I'm not here to ruffle any feathers, I swear. But in this video, I'm going to explain why the phrase "not all men" needs to stop being used. 97% of women in the UK have been harassed in some way, shape or form. So when there is a discussion that is going on and men say, "But no, I wouldn't do that. It's not all men." Women know it's not all men. They know it's not all men. But here's why we shouldn't say "not all men." Because when that is said, it doesn't develop or add anything to the discussion in any way. Because when it's said "not all men" and saying "I wouldn't do that," that's just searching for praise or validation. And it's drowning out the conversation. It's 2021. It is important as men. If you're a man watching this, it is important that we become allies. Because when we do, we amplify the voices of the victims. That's the whole point of this. We need to make progress. And if I can't convince you, the statistics will.
It may not be all men, but it's 99% of women. It may not be all men, but for me, I was 3 years old the very first time I was sexually abused by 3 different men. When I was 9 years old, the teenage boy who lived next door, he thought it was okay for a whole year. He sexually abused me. I didn't know that it was wrong because the older men had done it when I was 3 years old. So now that it's happening and he's a little bit younger, then maybe it's okay, but it wasn't okay. It's not all men, but when I was a teenager, it happened again. It happened again because of the times it had happened before. It had broke down my self-esteem, my self-worth so low that I stayed silent. It's not all men, but it's 99% of women who don't feel comfortable with men. I'm not saying every man goes to the extent of which my story was, but 1 in 4 are raped. It's not all men, but it's not on us.
Okay, hi TikTok. I'm probably going to catch some heat for this one because do you know what it is? All men. And I can immediately hear loads of people go, "It's not all men," and it's going to be the guys going, "It's not all men." Maybe a few women, because some have said it to me. But what I'm going to say is really important because it is to 90% plus of women, potentially all men. Now, I only got this about 10 or 12 years ago, and there was a specific incident in the UK. I think it involved a UK politician. I can't remember the details now. But I remember having conversations with my girlfriend at the time, and because I listened to her experience of life, I suddenly realized that just because I know I'm a nice guy, that woman in the lift that I get, or elevator, that I get into, where she's on her own and we're both in there together, she does not know that I am a nice guy, that I am not going to attack her, that I am not going to rape her. Okay? Yeah, I used that word. Now, here's the thing. What we have to do as guys, and I understand the temptation, okay? I'm single, I'm still relatively healthy, I get attracted to women. And I remember an incident not very long ago, and I was in a hotel overnight, so let's just put the scenario. So, hotel, overnight, strangers, door, lift door, elevator door opens, I'm going to step in, and there is an absolutely stunning woman in the elevator already. Stunning. Every instinct in me is to try and converse with her, attract her, do something. No. What I did, I acknowledged her, sort of kind of like, hi. I turned and I faced down, put my head down, looked into the opposite corner of the elevator. I stood as far away as I could from her and looked down into the corner of the elevator. Because right there and then, I was a potential threat. Now, I don't know that she was thinking that, but I know enough now and understand, and I've heard it enough from women to know that there's a 90% chance that she would have slightly gone on to edge the moment I got into that elevator. The best, the most human, the most caring, supportive thing I can do at that moment is to reduce the threat. The fact that a guy walking towards you, or potentially even worse, you can hear the footsteps behind you. You don't know who it is. You don't know whether he's a good guy or a bad guy. And this is what I mean about it is all men. All men are the potential threat. And we need to understand that, guys.
So here are the facts. 15 million adolescent girls worldwide between the ages of 15 and 19 have experienced forced intercourse. As many as 150 million girls worldwide are raped or subjected to sexual violence each year, usually by someone in their family circle. Each year, 15 million girls are married before the age of 18. That is 28 girls every minute. 72% of victims are victims of human trafficking, and those are also women. 82% of female parliamentarians have experienced some sort of psychological violence while serving term. Nearly half reported receiving death, assault, rape, and abduction threats. 65% have heard sexist remarks, primarily by male colleagues in parliament. These figures are not even accurate because most women are unable to report sexual violence to authorities due to many complicated reasons: fear of not being believed or fear of nothing happening because they are also run by the patriarch. And if you know that you're going to say something that's going to rattle feathers and nothing is going to come from it, you are in fear of your actual life. You are in fear of losing your life. So why would you come forward and say that something has happened to you? You wouldn't, right? And I respect the women that do come forward because it is scary. It is very, very frightening for you to stand up to the patriarch. I've got so many stories of men doing me gangster, of men just violating me and stuff. I've been raped before as well. And when I tried to talk about it, even the people from the church that I was serving at the time wouldn't believe me because the man who did it was a respectable member of the church. And I even had some women come to me and question me about it. Some women defended him without even hearing my side of the story, without knowing anything, just hearing the allegations. This is a cause for concern. We need to do better. I'm going to leave this video here because I didn't intend for it to be long, but can we really stop saying not all men? Because the good men know that they're good men, but the bad men try to hide behind the few good men and they think they can check out of the conversation. No, sir, Sit and listen to the conversation. At the end of the day, you are going to be fathers if you're not already fathers. You are brothers, you are husbands. If you care about women, you're going to care about this subject. And I find it so funny because for me and many other women, it's been my dad who has warned me about men. Not so much my mom. She has, but not to the extent of which my dad has put it in my head that men are strange and men are predatory. So you guys do know this. Why do you decide to check out of the conversation when you feel threatened and when you feel attacked? Do better. This argument of not all men is giving the same energy that people came up with the idea of white lives matter. We know white lives matter, but that's not what we're discussing right now. We're discussing the fact that black women and black people were going through it. There was police brutality, especially in America, but also worldwide. There's racism. It's real. It happens. And black people are targeted and usually the butt of the joke. So when we say Black Lives Matter, it's because we're highlighting the fact that we are also human. Put us up on the pedestal of human beings as well. So this argument of not all men is doing the same thing. We know it's not all men, but the men we're addressing need to be part of this conversation so they can hear it and change and do better. I hope you liked this video. As always, please comment, subscribe, like. Please share your experiences, whether you agree that it's not all men and whether you disagree. It doesn't matter. Just be respectful and share your opinions in the comment section. Until next time, stay safe out there. Cheerio.
You got it.